And we're going to move on now to our next presentation. It's by Aisling O'Regan. And Aisling, fire ahead when you're ready.
Hello everybody, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to present my project and the elevator pitch. So I suppose the case study that I'm looking at is the hemp agronomy in Ireland. I suppose in terms of novelty, it is a novel farm I suppose aspect, but in terms of complexity, if you were to adapt it to the origin chain network and the DLT and blockchain technology, there it could make integration of it very much more simple. I mean, the problems really that the hemp industry in Ireland are facing is that there's kind of inconsistent regulation, there is product identification problems, there is poor government funding, so there just seems to be a lot of, I suppose, a lack of integration in the sector. So with the blockchain technology and the origin chain networks adaptation, it would bring all the stakeholders together, the farmers, the government regulation, you know, like the Food Safety Authority, all of those kind of organizations. It could be linked to the CAP funding, the pillar funding, where say through the Internet of Things or the Internet of Agricultural Things, greenhouse gas emissions, you know, the biodiversity and the changes that are on the farm, they could be uploaded onto a blockchain, and CAP funding could be filtered through that system rather than the very long, lengthy, I suppose, kind of paper trails that sometimes these systems need. And again, using the blockchain as well and the interoperability of a DLT system, you could link with consumers from pharmaceutical to manufacturing, as hemp actually has multiple uses. It can be used for sustainable construction, rural regeneration, sustainable biocircular economy. It can be used as a food and in beverage industry. It's used as a health and personal well-being supplement, and it's also a very, very, very good product for carbon sequestration, which is actually kind of, I suppose, linked again to these the GAIC and the funding now from the EU, which is linked to environmental and biodiversity and change in terms of farming. Again, the origin chain network would prove hopefully easier for farmers to use because of the Agri-Trust app, where they can upload whatever details that they need to upload onto the system. Again, this can be validated across the chain. Again, I suppose in terms of being storing data on chain or off chain, certain details would have to be stored off chain, like the farmer's details, their personal details, location, geographic location, like that. But then I suppose interaction between the different nodes and the different contributors on the chain, interoperability would be essential to ensure that the farmers would have, I suppose, kind of maximum validation, and then even from the point of view of revenue generating, you know, interacting with as many sources as they possibly could. Just looking there at the semantic and interoperability center, the agro XML there is an agricultural language that seems to be able to translate source code between the various operators on the system. So that was just part of our project that we had to look up, and I presume some type of language like that or some type of system like that can be used to actually integrate between all the different players on the blockchain. And I would say overall, even though I have looked up a little bit about this, I don't know really initially should it be permissioned or permissionless. I said initially in my project permissionless, again, just to improve the ease of joining the chain and the ease of, I suppose, communication between the different players on the chain. As well as that, then obviously the smart contracts will be very useful to all players on the blockchain and in the system. Has if any disputes or anything arises from funding or even any supply chains, I mean the the chain is immutable, and it can be sourced back to the very start and to what happened along the chain. And I would suggest that tokenization would be a very important part of it to incentivize hemp farmers to upload data via the mobile app, so that maybe if they were uploading the data and it was validated as being across the chain as being I suppose truthful and reliable and transparent, that they would be rewarded with hemp coins that they could use then maybe to buy a particular hemp seed. The EU now only sanction 0.2% tetrahydrocannabinol oil or THC oil, so you have to actually use those seeds. So maybe they could use it to purchase those seeds, or even if there's other aspects of the farming that they needed to purchase. So yeah, that's my idea for the project. So thank you for listening.
Thanks a million, Aisling, for that fantastic presentation. And I suppose my first question is, what inspired you to take this approach to the challenge?
Yeah, I'm big into, I suppose, a very keen interest in environmental welfare, and that I think everybody does these days, really. So I have an interest in hemp as well, and I suppose one of the biggest challenges to the hemp industry is the multinational lobbying that goes on. You know, it's estimated that 40 billion is spent in Europe lobbying there to try and prevent hemp from becoming a food product, so that they can actually, I suppose, maintain all the rights to it and that kind of thing. So and as a product that could be used in, they can make hempcrete. You can be used as a food supplement. It can be used for animal feed, and the benefits of it. And it itself as a substance, hemp, it outgrows weeds, so you need less herbicides and pesticides. It is a prolific bioremediation agent, where it removes metals and things from the soil. So for me, I feel like it's a product that has many uses and definitely has a massive positive impact on our environment, but it's just getting it in and getting it integrated and getting the people who, especially the farmers, who are finding a lot of challenges in Ireland to try and get it up and running. Maybe something like the blockchain technology is something that can be validated and transparent, with interoperability, might be something that could actually bring it on as well. And now it is recommended by it is recognised by the IFA as a source of farming, and there is a cooperative that was formed in 2018, and there is the Irish Hemp Federation as well, so it is growing.
Thanks a million, Aisling, and I'll pass it over to our panelists now. Could our first panelist ask you their question?
I can go first. Thanks very much for the presentation. Very interesting. You mentioned a couple of different stakeholders. My question is, the end user and the consumer of that hemp is also going to be the stakeholder. What are the benefits you see to them as a consumer of your solution?
Yeah, I suppose it is just so that particularly in terms of hemp, that the 0.2%, at the proper levels of the THC is actually, I suppose, validated across the chain, and that the products that they're using are, I suppose, of the highest standard. As well as that, actually, consumers of hemp who have actually bought from hemp farmers have been rated by the guards. The Irish Hemp Federation have actually detailed that in a report that I researched there just for the project. So, like, from the point of view, if you can validate that you bought the hemp legitimately and that you're using it for legitimate purposes, like, in other words, that it is below, or it is in agreement with the standards that the EU require and that the Irish government require, well, then hopefully it would make life a lot easier for you as a consumer.
Thanks for that, Aisling. And if our next panelist could ask their question.
Aisling, well done. I'm really interested in the market. So there has been a massive increase in the market for CBD oil, for certified CBD oil, particularly organic certified oil. And have you I know this wasn't necessarily part of your project like this, but scoping the market, but have you had, you seem to be kind of engaged with the community and see a real potential in this product, you know, for multiple applications. Have you done much research into the scoping the market and the opportunity for it?
Well, I suppose this project really has brought it to the fore, I suppose, and kind of made me really think about it. You know, it would definitely be something that I would read a lot about, and I'm very interested in. And I would have a friend who would have a hemp farm, but I haven't scoped it, I suppose, from the point of view of me setting it up as a real-time business. I haven't done that as such yet, but definitely looking at the blockchain as a solution. I think because of its credentials being transparent, immutable, and validated, and receiving consensus across the blockchain, and that it's not just one person maybe corrupting the whole thing, or, you know, I think that could help the hemp industry.
I think that's a really interesting approach, because what we see here is a kind of relatively new product, let's say in Ireland, and you're solving multiple problems from kind of ground zero. So in any kind of technology, I think that's like that's the dream, really, to start from zero, you know, to introduce a system that makes sense for the problems that you can solve right now. So yeah, that's an interesting approach. Thanks very much, Barry.
Aisling, I admire your courage. You've taken on two of the biggest and probably most difficult areas to try and work with in terms of the market. The only thing I would say to you is, listening to you, don't rely on the technology to solve some of the problems. You've underlying issues, you have education, you have awareness, you have all of that stuff. You know the mountains that you've got to overcome with that way better than any of us. I would say to you, think of it as being an enabler. And I think you're right in terms of tracing the origins, but I don't think that's your issue. I think you've got bad actors in the space. And I think you might be better off playing up the fact that you can show that you are a good actor, your offering is, you're enabling, you know, something along those lines. Blockchain and its capabilities, it's a many-headed monster, and you don't need all of them in your corner. You only need one or two. So I would just think of those terms, because I was listening to you, and there was a bit of everything in there. You were talking tokens, you were talking all sorts of things. Pick one area and use that to your advantage. But I do admire, because as I joke, Fiona's heard me say this before. I joke, I used to be 6'2" and have a full head of blonde hair before I started in the blockchain space. It's you know, blockchain is a tough space, and hemp is equally as tough. So I really admire your courage and your conviction.
Yeah, I kind of thought they were quite similar in that they're both very disruptive. So, but like that was, you know,
a lot of barriers to break down with it. I can tell you, it is tough.
Definitely.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aisling. Thanks, Barry, and thanks, Fiona, for those great questions.